Welcome to The Insiders by Durham Lane, an industry podcast that connects the worlds of marketing and sales one guest at a time. I'm your host, Richard Lane, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by Kevin Beals, founder and CEO at My Sales Coach. Kev, really great to have you on the show. Not the first time I know, but thank you as always for being with us. Before we dive in, perhaps you can just give our listeners a little bit about yourself and My Sales Coach.
Thanks, Rich. Yeah, great to be back and great to be involved. Yeah, my name's Kevin Beals. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called My Sales Coach. My Sales Coach matches expert sales coaches with individuals and teams to help them elevate their performance and grow. And my background is working in sales tech and really recognizing that coaching is the number one lever in terms of having impact on performance and growth. And how can we do that? Making sure that we match people with the right experts and really recognize how we can help them and their teams grow as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And today we're going to talk really through the results of the state of sales coaching in 2026, which was My Sales Coach report that came out recently. I think I'm right in thinking this is the second report. Is that correct? Done two?
It is, yeah. So, obviously, everything that we do and everything that we preach is really around sales coaching and its impact. So we started a year ago with what is by a distance the biggest survey in sales coaching. Now, we're talking about now thousands of people that have contributed to those two surveys, which we asked a lot of the same questions, so that gives us some kind of point of difference of what's changed in the world. We asked some new questions and different questions as well, just to kind of give us a broader understanding of some part. But yeah, this is the second year and something that we intend to do every year.
And the first thing, I'll get you to maybe talk through headlines in a sec, Kev. But the first thing that I guess caught my eye was that I think you had more sales leaders this time than last time. The split seemed more sort of equal in leaders and individual contributors. But one thing that that stuck out to me was that those leaders believe they're coaching more, yet the sales people think they're getting less. Is that the? How do we square that one to start?
That is an unfortunate headline. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. This is a survey that we do both with sales reps and teams and with sales leaders. Slightly different variations, obviously, of the survey for each of those as we did last year. And an overwhelming but really disappointing thing that kind of comes out of that survey is leaders feel it's all great. They tell us that they're coaching more frequently. They tell us that the coaching that they do works. So 2/3 of sales leaders say that they would recommend their approach to sales coaching to others. But despite that, reps tell us that they get less coaching. And really disappointingly, and this was a real shift from last year, the coaching is getting worse. So they say that they're getting coached less frequently. So for 40% tell us that they're rarely getting coached or not coached at all. So 4 out of 10 people telling us they're not even getting coaching, but they're telling us that the coaching they get is getting worse. So last year, it was 29% of people said that the coaching that they get is not valuable. That went up to 45% this year. So that's a 50% rise year on year in the quality of that coaching. So yeah, as you say, there's just this massive disparity between what leaders tell us, what leaders believe, and what reps and sellers tell us.
And maybe it's perceived quality. Actually, one of the things that as you know, I'm passionate about coaching. We've built Durham Lane on the 70-20-10 learning model, and it's been sort of at the heart since day one. But I wonder whether, it's from what you said just there, it feels to me like there are loads of more deal reviews, or probably as many deal reviews happening as before. They're just being called coaching sessions. And does a rep value that as a deal review? Possibly. Do they value a deal review when they're being told it's coaching? I imagine not.
I think that is the heart of the problem, is that the time busy managers and leaders who are obviously juggling lots of lots of like different things that they are have responsibility for, the one-to-one time that they have with their team, especially in times where less reps are achieving quota and selling is becoming harder, that time is focused on the bottom of the funnel. It's pipeline reviews, it's deal reviews, as you say. It's like the focus is obviously on this month's numbers, this quarter's numbers, not on how you can improve that person as an individual, how you can help them grow, how you can help their skills grow, how you can make them a better seller. That doesn't necessarily help this month's numbers. And I think, that short-term focus that as organizations often exists for managers, drives short-term, and I'm going to use the word in inverted commas, coaching, because as you say, leaders feel like they're coaching, they feel like they're having impact, they feel like they're helping revenue close. Are they helping sellers become better, become more skilled, to grow? Invariably not. And that's where I think that disparity, as you say, comes from. That actually the focus is very different.
And do you think there's a if you went out to everyone that you survey, I don't know if you did this actually, but if you went out to everyone you surveyed and said define coaching, would you have got a common answer?
Well, I know we wouldn't. I know from the conversations that we have every day that the problem almost with the word sales coaching is it's just a very, very broad church that has different meanings to different people. It doesn't really, I think in fairness, you could even say it does lack a definition, because what we all might consider sales coaching is often not what certainly pure professionals would call coaching.
Yeah.
And so that, there is just a broad church. It has become almost like a marketing term. We're now including that we'll talk about AI sales coaching as, as coaching as well. So when organizations consider, do our team get the coaching that they need and deserve, then often from a leaders or an organization perspective, that feels like a yes. But for those reasons, from a rep or a seller's point of view, when they think, is someone investing in me growing as an individual, becoming better, becoming a more skilled salesperson, that's a very, very different a very different answer. And I think you're right that that disparity between that fundamental understanding of coaching tends to mean that leaders consider the time they spend one to one as coaching, and reps and sellers feel like they're not getting coached.
Which then leads us to that point in one of your chapters. I think it's chapter 6, around who reps want to be coached by. Now, my sales coach is an external sales coaching company, so it's I sort of get this here, but I wonder whether there's a real opportunity for that peer coaching. And and I think the challenge perhaps currently is that, as you say, we're giving different answers to what is sales coaching. And ultimately, if you could create an organizational culture where you've got peer to peer coaching going on, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? That would unlock huge efficiencies.
Totally. And like, yeah, whilst obviously, you call out, obviously what we provide is that external part. We're passionate believers of the answer to coaching isn't just an external coach. That combination of external coach, manager coach, peer coaching, sales enablement, all of those, and technology, and all of those coming together to help someone grow and perform. I think peer coaching is the it is the probably the most underutilized part of coaching. I know it's something that you're passionate about at Durham Lane, and do really well there, but relatively few organizations do. I think generally it's become a little bit harder in the fact that it doesn't happen without being deliberate. We used to spend more time together in the office. We would spend more time on the phone or on calls, listening to each other. Now, even when we're in the office, we'll be in a booth on our call, and we're not. We don't get that learning from osmosis of hearing what someone else did, hearing how someone else phrased it, hearing how they dealt with a particular challenge. So, we are in isolation, whether that's remote or because we're sat in a booth, and we lose that benefit of that peer coaching happening without it being deliberate. And very few organizations are really deliberate about it. And there is such an opportunity. It's such an obvious step for how do people learn to become the leaders of tomorrow. That kind of coaching and mentoring peers is such an obvious opportunity of how you can help an individual's growth in becoming a leader of tomorrow and a coach and manager of tomorrow, but at the same time help peers and share that best practice and what works.
And do you think, just jumping back a little bit, do you think that's a bit of an indictment of the times we're in, where everything has to be immediate? Because actually, if you engage with a coach, external, internal, whatever, then who knows what you're going to be talking about? And like you said earlier, who knows when it will actually manifest in positive results? But the reality is, it no doubt will, but we don't know when. And everybody, I find myself getting stuck in this rut as well. When's that going to close? When's that going to happen? When's this going to happen? It has to happen by the end of month, end of quarter, whatever it might be. And so there's just this sort of pressure that is always there, which perhaps is stopping organizations or individuals or sales leaders from actually stepping back and going, well, how can I help you?
I think it's immediacy and it's metrics. So you're totally right that people want and need, right? I mean, whether it's sellers or managers or leaders, our jobs are perceived to be on the line without performance, and sometimes there needs to be your perceived immediate changes to that to that performance, and that focus is very short term. But yeah, it is also about metrics as well. In fact, one of the things that managers told us when we asked them why they didn't spend more time coaching, the second most popular answer was the challenges of assessing impact. So nearly 1 in 4 said that the challenge of assessing impact holds them back from coaching. So this is coaching, which, countless studies and surveys, including obviously this one, show the correlation between coaching and performance. That feels like, certainly to me, a really proven concept of,
Yeah.
coaching and performance are directly correlated. But it is difficult, and I get this. It is difficult for managers to be really specific about that, going, well, if I spend this much time, this is going to be the outcome, because it isn't quite as direct as that. There is going to be an outcome, but as you say, for some that might be quite quick, for some that might take longer. What you help one person with might have an impact on this month's or next quarter's numbers. For others, they need to unblock or change behaviors or mindsets or the way they do things, which isn't going to have an impact for for maybe still several quarters, or a true impact in revenue for several quarters. And so therefore it's really difficult to make a direct correlation of, I did this and this is what happened as a result. And we live in this world where that correlation and metrics is what we're kind of brought up with. We do this, and this is the impact, both in our in our day jobs and otherwise.
And do you? I mean, you'll be talking, you and your colleagues talking all day long to organisations that have got this, and many that haven't. But how do the best in class then capture the value? How do they have systems they use? Is it simply on a spreadsheet? Is it just ethereal? How are the best capturing this and making it stick within their organisation?
So I think that for the best, you have that personal coaching plan, because then you get the opportunity of measuring the things that you're actually working on. So, obviously the ideal and the ultimate is that you're measuring against revenue and you're measuring against KPIs and outcomes. And that happens, as I said, but sometimes that takes time because there are other things that need to happen first that are going to lead to those revenue outcomes. But you want to be able to measure those sooner. You want to measure those leading indicators so that you can measure change and you can justify change and the value of that change, which then leads to income. So by having coaching plans and knowing what you're helping an individual with at any point in time gives you the opportunity of being able to measure those particular things and be able to demonstrate those leading indicators first. I think the other thing that I would say that we see in like those that those that do it best is that coaching really comes from the top. Um, that you have managers that are helped to be great coaches, and again, that's a real challenge. And again, this came out of the survey that only a third have ever had any support in being a coach. So for most people, it is like coaching is really important. You should be spending time coaching your team. And especially if you've never had great coaching yourself, then you're trying
Yeah.
to just figure it out and work it out. So it starts from the top in helping those people. It starts from the top of people having a coach. 1 in 5 leaders has got a coach. How can you have a coaching culture if it doesn't feel like your leaders need a coach and they don't get to see the value of a coach themselves? So it starts from the top. And that's where then another correlation comes in, is that your top performers are the ones that crave coaching the most. Your top performers are the people that, and again, that correlation often seems unnatural within other organizations, that they want to spend time coaching those that are struggling and those that aren't performing. And that's obviously needed and is valuable. But actually, the people that crave coaching the most, the people that lean into coaching the most, are top performers who obviously have a bigger impact on revenue, but also the retention of those people becomes really key as well. And coaching's a big part of that.
So as a sales contributor that has been promoted inside the organization, the odds are that you've probably never had any sales management training, and the odds are that you almost certainly have had no sales coaching training. So you're just going off on gut feel, and which is a sort of indictment of our profession, unfortunately, which I believe has got a lot better in the sort of 17 or so years that I've been sort of very focused on this, but it's still got such a long way to go, hasn't it, in that respect? And by providing those pathways for people to be successful, and I really take a point about it has to come from the top, because if people are not seeing it happen at the top level, then why should they bother as it moves down? And it does make you think that revenue is such an important, almost solo driver in an organization that, as and I know we've been guilty of this in the past. Someone becomes proficient, they're doing a great job, and you let them get on with it. And I was always taught of your A, B's and C's players, if you put 10% more time into your A's, you get a lot more revenue. But it's hard to do when you're firefighting.
And yeah, and just that last point, again, that was something that came out of the data, is that people that have a long tenure in that role and that particular role want more coaching. So those that have been 6 to 10 years in the same role, 80% of those, it was actually the highest percentage of any of the brackets of tenure, are asking for more coaching. And the longer that they've been in that role, the less likely they are to get coaching as well. So over half of people that have been there for over 5 years get any coaching whatsoever. There's almost an assumption of you've been doing it for a long time and therefore you know how to do it. But just to pick up on one thing that you said there, Rich, and I know you've been in sales a long time. I've been in sales nearly as long, but I'm not sure it is getting better. I'm like, I know you kind of sort of like said there, I think we're getting better, but I'm not. I'm not actually convinced that's true, because the tenure of managers is getting shorter.
Yeah.
You're getting less time. So again, with that backdrop, as you said, of you don't get the training, you don't necessarily know how to coach, but by the way, you better have a quick impact because your time in that role is on average limited to barely over 12 months. You've been that top performer, you're now promoted to leading and managing, which is like just a new job. It doesn't really hardly relate to what you did and how you did it. It's about managing people and coaching people effectively. Um, and then in this age of AI, where we're given more support to be spend more time selling to the right people, and given the tools so that we don't have to spend as much time on the non-selling activities, we've got more people missing quota than ever. And so I think, that the correlation of like, yeah, we don't help managers. Managers fail and fail frequently and quickly, and sellers aren't hitting quota. I think, we have to ask as an industry, are we learning? Are we getting better? Or are we just, expecting more impact from tools like AI, from being able to, from an era where selling is becoming harder. There's, more gateways to a decision, more people involved in the decision. Are we really making that progress?
Yeah, I think I'd probably counter that and saying I will definitely after this recording reflect on where I think we are, Kev. But I think that the very fact that companies like My Sales Coach, with reports like the one we're discussing, exist, say to me that we are getting better. There is more process and structure in sales than there definitely was when I set up my first business. But I think the world's got so much harder. The
Yeah,
the ability to, well, the complexity and the ability to run a sales cycle has just got overwhelmingly more difficult, and that's probably
yeah,
shifting the gap as well. So probably lots of different factors, but
for
we'll
sure.
take that offline another time over a beer.
That's the next podcast.
Let, let, let's move to AI then, because you've spent quite a bit of time in the report talking about the rise of AI coaching. I guess my first question is, can you help me and our listeners understand what is AI coaching? What does it look like?
Well, again, that's where it becomes a broad church, and that word, those two words that obviously of AI and coaching both have very very broad meaning. I think what we're seeing most prolifically is AI coaching is AI is role play. And being able to practice in a
Right.
safe environment and being able to get feedback on your performance and have somewhere where you can kind of replicate that. That's probably the most proficient way that we're seeing AI used. There are other ways where it's giving feedback on your calls and recommend scores or recommendations from your scores. And then there is some advent of an AI agent essentially replacing a human in terms of a one-to-one conversation that perhaps at this stage I'm a little bit more skeptical about. But that skepticism definitely exists in sellers as well. Only in whatever they interpreted as AI coaching, only 13% considered it to be useful. 6 out of 10 said they were openly skeptical about it. And probably like most worrying, where they said their organization has already invested in AI coaching tools, 40% said it had not been useful at all. So I
Right.
think that there is obviously great opportunity where AI is going to accelerate the impact of coaching and the impact on growth and performance. But I think where we are today in AI coaching tools, I think that the survey is certainly telling us that for most organizations and for most sellers, they're finding it underwhelming. And that really correlates with, is it having the impact on performance and people hitting quota that organizations would have liked to expected? Possibly not.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm just sort of, as I was listening to you talk then, Kev, I was thinking about our journey. So we've just won an award for how we've implemented AI role play. Do you know? I didn't even really see it as coaching. So it's just
I think that's,
as
yeah,
you've been
that's
to as
tricky.
you've been
Yeah.
to as you've been talking, from us, it's done an amazing thing for us. So I was talking in our world, which is SDR outsourcing. I was talking about the first 100 calls. Until
Yeah.
you've had those
Yeah.
first 100 calls, you don't really you don't really know. You're too busy worrying about your next question, so that means you're not listening. So, how do I get into active listening, being interested, interesting mode? Well, I just need to become used to doing what I'm doing, and we've used this technology really well over the last year. We've now reduced our time to people getting to proficiency. We're down to sort of 21 days from hire, and that's a lot of that is through the ability to practice role play. It's funny, in my head I saw that more as training. And
I think that's yeah, and I think that's kind of key, Rich, and like sort of like says a lot about you and what you do at Durham Lane is that that you can see the value of that in accelerating onboarding and helping people learn in a safe environment and getting that muscle memory of making mistakes, but in a safe place, and then being more proficient by the time they do ramp and hit the phones. And what a brilliant use case for that technology, and like on where technologies like that have real value for an organization, where perhaps you look at that as we don't coach our teams enough, let's buy a tool like that because that's going to solve everything. That's maybe where it where it falls down. And I think the fact
yeah,
that you don't use the word coaching for that is really telling in terms of like the value it does give you and how you do use that.
yeah, and I think again, you said, was it 14% you said that felt they got benefit, and yet your chapter 8 of your report is saying that 35 to 40% already investing, 40 to 45% likely to invest. So actually the amount of cash that's being diverted away from more traditional forms of coaching, which I guess in my mind you have to have both coexist, because they should be solving different needs. It's like, on the one hand, from a Durham Lane point of view, we're enabling people very quickly to become competent, proficient, comfortable, confident in their approach. But on the other hand, and for us it's sort of more, I guess, manager and peer led. Well, that's my constant refrain anyway, is that more peer led, but manager and peer led around, this is how we can help you be the best salesperson possible. And I see that coexistence, and I guess that's the area you're, as my sales coach, you're really honed in on that bit.
Exactly, because I think for as you've described there, um, whether it's peers, managers, external coaches, combination of all of the above. The unfortunate truth is none of that is easy or cheap. It is resource intensive, it is human, it's not inexpensive, and therefore in order to have that acceleration there is a real investment of time and money. And so the lure of here's an AI coaching tool that will do that for you is enormous. Like that would be great to think that we could accelerate the growth and performance of our teams by buying a technology to do that. But I think that's where we are today, is that technology alone is not the solution. That technology in
Yeah.
conjunction, and your example is a brilliant example of where those two things happening in parallel, of you're helping people ramp by giving them that safe space, and then giving them the peer and manager coaching in your instance to help them grow and accelerate and become better performers and more successful, is where technology and human coaching work perfectly in unison.
Yeah, and it's yes. So this is. I really love this conversation, Kev. So thank you. And I'm sure everyone's getting loads of value from it. So it's a great discussion point, and one that really is. It feels like a simple fix. I know it's not, but in terms of, it feels to me almost like more definition is required. I definitely think you've got a module in your organization around coaching the coaches, in terms of, how do we create those frameworks, and how do we help people that are managers to be stronger coaches. That's a huge need, clearly. So we've gone through the state of sales coaching in 2026. You've sort of taken us on a journey of some of those themes, and perhaps slightly depressingly, it doesn't seem like it's really getting any better. Although I think there is definitely some glimmers of light in there. Well, maybe perhaps as a final thought before we wrap, how would you want to sort of leave it and tell us about what's happening next?
So I think, one thing that is definitely clear is that correlation between sales and coaching and performance is stronger than ever. Again, there's a lot of evidence of people that were coached more frequently hit quota. Leaders that coached more frequently, their teams were more successful. So that correlation definitely exists. I think, what we'll start to see as we move forward is how can we support human expert coaching, be that peers, managers, and external, to be more effective and more valuable using technology. And I think, that's where we're going to see, when we do our 2027 report, as far off as that seems right now, I'm sure what we'll start to see is that actually that some of the barriers to that human coaching, or the amount of human coaching that perhaps teams need, starts to become easier because technology can support those humans rather than replace them.
Yeah, and technology should be able to support the KPI and the metric side more, shouldn't it? So, how do we measure what we're doing, and how do we use technology to help us do that? Just one thing I was thinking about as you were talking earlier, it feels like we're falling into this same trap that we always seem to do with technology, which is we'll buy it and it will solve the problem, but it never does. If you buy a piece of tech and don't educate people on and incent and encourage them on how to use it, then it won't work. But hopefully we're a good example of how that hasn't happened, and how you can get the positive results, and then how you blend the AI world with the human world to create that overarching coaching culture. That would be a massive win.
And you'll have seen this obviously with your own business, that the lure of, will we be able to replace SDRs with AI? Like, sounds so desirable from an organization's perspective, but the reality is that that doesn't work. That hasn't worked for organizations. But the true answer is, as you're doing at Durham Lane, how can you accelerate the impact and the results that individuals and human talent has by supporting that with technology? That's the future.
Awesome. Well, Kev, thanks so much for being with us. Really appreciate you talking us through the state of sales coaching in 2026. Look forward to 2027. How do you go out, and do you just, can anyone take part in your survey, just for our listeners to think about future months and when it comes out again? I presume it's sort of LinkedIn, etc.
Yeah, so follow myself, Kevin Beals, on LinkedIn, or my sales coach, and you'll see in Q4 towards the end of the year, we'll start putting that out there. Invite people to participate. We put some great prizes up there to try and encourage people to get involved. And if anyone wants a copy of the report, that's available to download from the website as well, where it shares all of the data that we've talked through today.
Awesome, and we'll try and put a link when we get the podcast out as well, to help people get to that page easily. Kevin, thank you, and thanks to everyone listening. Really appreciate you joining us for another episode of the Insiders Podcast. I'm Richard Lane. I've been your host. If you'd like to hear more from us, then please find us on your favourite podcast sites such as Spotify, Apple, and the rest. And if you'd like to know more about Durham Lane, our services, stories, and how much more we are than SDR outsourcing, please check out durhamlane.com. Until next time, see you then. Thanks very much. Thanks.